Welcome to the Disrupt Education podcast. Alli, we've got a sunny day today. It's nice.
Finally. And despite the change of the season, even though by the time this comes out, it'll be full-blown spring. But I got to end the winter season jumping out of planes, which is, of course, my favorite pastime. And finally got my coach rating for those who have been along for the journey, which is just a big, feels like an entering a new season, which we are literally as well. So that's the big update.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
That is great. That is great. We have conflict in the house. I'm just going to say that, like conflict. Gwen Hill is with us today. How are you doing? How's it going today, Gwen?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for inviting me to share. And I just love Disrupt Education. I mean, we need to do that because some of the old norms, they're not working today. So I think this is a fantastic conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'm going to tell everybody this. I was in a workshop with you, conflict. What is it good for? Absolutely everything, which I love the title. I wanted to first give the audience a backdrop of who you are, but I think that's always best told by the person themselves, because you have a long list of amazing accomplishments in different places. But can you tell everybody who you are and what you're all about?
My bread and butter came from IT or information technology training. So I'm a software trainer and I can train pretty much anything. But what I found in that training is, and my niche is law firms. And so what I found is that law firms will spend the money for IT training, Word and PowerPoint and Excel and all their document management systems. And I have to know all of those 5 levels deep, because I have to be able to help people to migrate to the new level and all that. But they won't pay for the kinds of training that they need internally, like conflict resolution. The attorneys can go because they're litigators, right? So they need that training, but not the people that are in what is called business services. And so what I started doing was actually teaching conflict in every class that I taught. Every class, in an Excel class, every class, there was some little something that was related to conflict. And if it was an upgrade, it would be, how many of you are here and you don't want to be here? And, nobody would raise their hand. And I'd say, well, here's the good news. I need you to look at this as an opportunity to pump up the volume on your resume, to pump up the volume on your abilities. So what you learn here today, you're going to be able to put that in a file. And when it's time for you to get your review, you get to tell your boss how you use this training to be a better employee, to be a better part of the staff, a part of the team, to improve your skills, to improve your workflows. And so the purpose of that was to get those people that are sitting there like this, they're hostages, they don't want to be there. They're scared because they think their job is going to be replaced by this new technology. And to get those people to recognize that they're important. And it always changed the atmosphere. Every single time I would do something like that, it would change the atmosphere. So I realized that if conflict is something that is important to me, and I realize that it's everywhere we go and in everything we do, and everyone that you encounter, then it's my job to help them, and it doesn't matter what I'm training.
Jump into teaching, right, Alli? There's no conflict there.
If I'm a student and or I'm a teacher in a professional development setting, or even admin, how does that, or how have you seen that approach really play out in the educational space? Or, what is a takeaway that teachers and students can really think about when it comes to conflict from your experience?
That's such a great question. And it reminds me of a recent session that I did with middle school children on conflict. And it reminds me of, so when I went into the training, I thought I need to create a conflict going in. So I brought with me little bundles of yarn. And I gave everybody, I put a bundle at every seat and I said, sit at your favorite color. Nobody did that. They picked up the color they wanted and they went to sit where they wanted to sit, right? So conflict already, right? So you know, what we did was we used that as our icebreaker to actually meet one another. And so they tossed their yarn. They tied the yarn to their arm, and then they tossed the ball to somebody else. And so we did that real slow for a couple of people. And then I said, okay, let's have a yarn fight and introduce yourself all at the same time. Everybody just shout out your name and your age and, you know, what grade you're in. And some people might see that as just a ball of confusion, but you've got kids that you just got out of school. It's 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the afternoon. They just left school. They're probably hungry, right? And they're antsy. And so that was a way to dispel the conflict of their energy that was going to be flowing through the class, maybe negatively. But the best part for me was I taught them about the 5 styles of conflict or managing conflict, and that we all have those styles. And I didn't think they were listening. So I did that on the Tuesday. And then the next, that following Thursday, I came back. And so I thought I'd do a review. And they gave me the review, even though they were loud and boisterous and walking around and having to be asked to sit down and be quiet and all of that. They were able to bring that information back to me. So then I gave them role plays. And I said, okay, you've got your role play, and you're going to play out that scene in front of the class for everybody with an idea in mind of what style you're using. And I have to tell you both that they did exactly what was asked of them. And so to, you know, engage the other students, if they knew the style, they would yell freeze. And so they had to stop. Like if they were in like this, they had to, whoever was in the scene at the front of the room, they had to stop. And then they would tell them what the scene was. So what was interesting about that was there was a person in the room that was a part of a team. And when it was time for their team to go up, they wouldn't go up. And they said, I'm not a part of that team. And I'm like, I know you are. What are we going to do? I know you are. What are we going to do? I'm saying that to myself. And a lot of times what people do with kids is they get angry because they're being disobedient in their mind, right? Because, you know you're a part of this team. You're basically, for lack of a better term, lying, you know, and now you don't want to be a part of it. So what do? I said, you know what? There's a scene that I didn't get to put on one of the little cards. So why don't you decide which style you're gonna represent, and then have a scene of conflict between you and you. And he was like, really? I'm like, yeah, you and you get to make the whole thing up. It's not even the scene. I don't even have a little card with a scene on it. And he played out the scene, and it was just wonderful. And people said, who are you? So the styles are competing, collaborating, and so forth. But the style that he played out was that he was competing with himself. Competing is basically the style that says, if all of us are in a conflict, I'm not going to listen to Peter, and I'm not going to listen to you, Alli. I want my way. My way, right? And so he was having this conflict with himself, and he wanted his way, but he knew what the better way was that he needed to handle that conflict. And so I say all of that to say that we should stop discounting our children. They are a lot brighter than we think they are, and they're paying attention more than we think they are. So working with adult children all the time, and then having to go to these middle schoolers, you know, it was a interesting dynamic, you know, teaching both. And I was glad to be able to be in their presence, because they in a way helped me to understand that, I'm offering something and they're getting it, you know? And so what I learned there, to kind of going back to your question, long statement to answer your question, is that conflict exists everywhere. And we need to take a look at it and say, am I going to embrace this and try to work it out? Or am I just going to allow my feelings, my position, my ego, my wants and desires to take over? And I didn't. And what happened there is it made them more pliable, if that makes any sense, because people saw that happen, you know, and they were like, wow, that was really nice. One person even said that was really nice. He's really on our team. I said, I know, you know, but it didn't matter. It was about getting from A to Z.
I think it's funny because I heard 8th graders are like lawyers in there.
Yes. Notice I said my adult children, right?
Right. No discounting. I got a lot of friends who are lawyers and they're great
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely.
Especially when they're on your side, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
So, going through, what's interesting is just today, and this was not staged. It happened in class. There was a conflict in one of my classes, and it happened between myself and a student. And then I kind of went through okay, let somebody talk it out. Remember that. And I see that all the time, go all the way through, and then we have the conversation. I remember a lot of these strategies and such that you put out there as we were going through it. It was great. It actually strengthened the relationship between the student and I, right? So with that being said, there's a huge, I think, especially for educators now, you have a pandemic that has gone through, you have a changing, I would say almost like your students are changing. Let's say just technology is changing, social media is changing students. There's different ways of handling conflict without much interaction, if you will. So, when was it, what prompted you to kind of start thinking differently about education to do this, to start working with middle schoolers? Because, that's it really, to me, this is, and again, I'm going to tell everybody out there, I have been through your workshop. It should be in every school. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that because it's true.
Thank you for that.
For educators as well. This is something like, I'll get to that in a minute, but yeah, what prompted you to think about, learning differently a little bit in those educational spaces and conflict?
Well, I believe that my ability to share information is a gift. And I think I've always known it because I was the person in the neighborhood that started all the talent shows and everything and put everything together. Couldn't dance, couldn't sing. But I was the person that was organizing and putting it all together and telling people to do their steps and telling them to sing this particular tune or whatever, and it would sound horrible coming from me. But point being, I never wanted to be an educator for children. I never wanted to do that because I was like, I just couldn't do this. So I started teaching adults. And what I've realized is a part of what is going on with those adults is the unresolved issues from their childhood. And so if I can be on both sides, and handle them like a human being, not an adult that should know this, or a kid that was raised differently from me, that I know this, but they don't, if I can just look at the situation, just the situation. So those people coming into the classroom, the conference room or whatever, when I'm teaching a new document management system and they're coming in and they're petrified that this is going to take over their jobs. What are we really looking at? Am I really there to teach the application? No, I'm really there to teach the people. I'm really there to share information with people so that they can use the information to be more effective in the organization. So that shift, for me, I've heard a lot of people say, I would have never talked about conflict. This class isn't about that. It is. Everything is about conflict. It's everywhere. And I think that the opportunity we need to embrace is the fact that we need to embrace it and look at it as an opportunity to change the dynamic of something, And Alli, do you have children?
I do not.
Okay.
You're the students that I had
siblings,
for
right?
10 years.
Yep. And you have children, right? Okay. And so you see those situations, right, where you could make the decision of, okay, we can fight about this or we can figure out how to work it out. And so I learned it from adults, but I was glad to have the opportunity to come and share that same information. And when I say same information, it was interesting to me that I thought, okay, I can't get as technical with the youth. But I did. And I actually feel like they embraced the information, even though they didn't show it, as much as people do in my class, especially when I forgot one of the 5 styles. And I said in that other style I can't think of. And right now it's leaving my mind right now.
I got a what?
I can't think of it. Anyway, I can't think of it. But the point is, I couldn't think of it. And the person just came up with it. And I said, thank you so much. Thank you. You know what you let me know is that you were listening. I didn't know you guys were really listening to me. He's like, yeah, we listen. You know. So it is an opportunity. Every time there is a conflict, it is an opportunity to get closer to the people in your team, in your family, in your classroom. And one of the things I did with them is I showed them a 53-second clip of a student coming into a room and pushing the chair to the side and sitting down, kicking the trash can, and the teacher. And all she did was spur the behavior on. You're not going to act like that today. You sit there. If you do this, that, or the other, you're getting out of this room. And I'm thinking, what did she go through today? What has she been experiencing in the last, whatever, with him or with other people? What has she been dealing with that she's got to put this armor on every day to be able to get through the day? And what she really needed to realize that something was going on with this kid. And she's the adult in the room, and it's her responsibility, unfortunately, to do something different. So we had a conversation with the kids, and I didn't mention the teacher's behavior at all. I said, so what happened in that 53 seconds? And they're like, he came in with an attitude. What is wrong with him? And then another kid says, but nobody asked him what was wrong. Nobody said, are you okay? Nobody said anything to him but, you're disruptive, you're mean, you're this, you're that, you better stop, you're always doing this, get out. Right? That's all he got. Now, the other side of that is I have a friend of mine that has been my friend quite some time. She's assistant principal. She just retired. And she talked about how when she started out as a teacher in the school district that she worked in, before she could teach anything, she had to brush teeth because she had to bring toothbrushes to work. She had to comb hair. She had to give deodorant, provide deodorant for kids. She had to feed them because if I don't take care of their basic needs, how are they going to pay attention to me? So the role of a teacher is just it's one of the most phenomenal roles in the world. All they have to carry, and so here you have this group of people that she walked in with her own baggage, her own history, her own stuff, and she's got to deal with his. And she's got to try to put hers on the shelf while she deals with his. And he doesn't know how to put his on the shelf, So my desire to be in this space was to help people to realize that we're just people. Doesn't matter what color you are, what age you are, what ethnicity you are, none of it matters. We're just human beings. So let's just try to approach it from that perspective and not from, I remember once in college having an argument, like a really loud screaming argument with 4 guys, with 3 girls and 4 guys. We were in each other's face. And it was really getting heated and I was getting a little scared, like, maybe somebody might throw a punch or something, And the guy on the other side, he said, hey, is that lint in your hair? And I said, where? He says, like over there. And he reached in, he got it. We just looked at each other and we just stared at each other for a long time, like, what just happened? Totally changed the atmosphere. You know what I mean? And that's what we need to look at the conflict as an opportunity to change the atmosphere. And that's what I try to do.
Really, I think the work that you're doing is so important. And for the educational system, I feel like there is a lot of conflict at every level. And so how can, no matter in organizations, I mean, really this transcends education, but, we really do want to talk about it in that space for the podcast, but, how can educational systems use conflict to, improve the educational system, to improve, cohesion or effectiveness or, efficiency, like all of those things. What are the opportunities to use conflict for good and not see it as like a battle? Because when I hear that word, I sometimes think like, oh, we have to battle, like your example. But, how can we shift our mindset around conflict as you're talking about for the opportunity that it truly can be?
Another course that I teach is called Giving and Receiving Constructive Criticism. And, right? And when I taught the course at first, I didn't develop the course. I was asked to speak to that and to actually train it, not to just be a speaker. And when I created that, it bothered me, Alli, all the way through it, the words constructive criticism, because it's not received well, right? When what it really is constructive feedback. So when it comes to conflict, we have to find a way to change how people see it, because you immediately with conflict, you get all balled up and all tight and wondering, okay, let me protect myself. What's about to happen, right? And so I think that the first step is that each professional needs to know those 5 styles. And unfortunately, I don't know why I'm zoning on them right now, but know those 5 styles.
I'm
Peter
trying to
knows
remember
them.
myself.
You know what? I will send them to you so you can use them in the future. But here's the point. The point is, one of them is collaborating, one of them is the expert, the other one is accommodating, and the other 2 are I'm just zoning on them. Long day. But when we understand that we use all of those styles, we need to figure out which one we need to use when. So I always thought that I was the great person to be on a team because I love to collaborate. And I was a training consultant, so it was great for me to go to these different organizations because I like to collaborate, right? Well, sometimes the collaborator creates the conflict because they won't make a decision, you know? So collaboration's positive is being a collaborator, but the negative is you ask so many questions, you're wasting time and nobody's making that decision. And the other one is being the expert. And so, or it's competing. So competing is that person that I'm always right. Sometimes somebody's got to be right. So Alli, if you come into the hospital in the emergency room and your leg is broken and they say, what do we do? And the doctors are like, let's collaborate. Should we put a splint on it? Should we take her to surgery? And, blood's shooting out everywhere. And they're like, should we stop the bleeding? What should we do? No, somebody's got to say, stop the bleeding, right? Somebody's got to be the expert. Somebody's got to be the person in charge, right? So we need to recognize that we have all 5 styles within us and we have to figure out when we use which one. And if they would all take the test to find out what those styles mean and identify themselves, because I think, Peter, you and Steve both said, I don't think I'm whatever it said your strongest style was. He said, I don't think I'm really, that's my strongest style. But when they told me my strongest was collaborate, I was like, yeah, that's who I am. And then it says, but here's the downside. Here's the downside of being a collaborator. I never thought about it that way. So when you realize that there's an upside and a downside to each style, and it's okay to use all of them, but you got to know when, you've got to, it's situational. Sometimes you need the expert. You need all of the styles. Sometimes you need the expert. Sometimes you need somebody to be a collaborator. Sometimes you need somebody to be accommodating, and you need to figure out when you need to do that. And it's really what's at stake. Sometimes it's better to just walk away, just be accommodating in that situation. But bottom line, for what your question, it's a bad habit that it always takes me 350 words to answer a question that could have been yes or no. But the bottom line is that we need to know the 5 styles. We need to know that there are ways that we should, or ways and times to use those styles. And that would change the dynamic of the conflicts that we deal with. If I'm always trying to be competing, if that's the only way I operate, I am turning people away from me. If I'm always the collaborator and always asking 15 million questions when it was a yes or no question, right? And, pulling it out to this when it was just this, then I'm creating a problem. So I need to know the positive and the negative side of each style and which one is your strongest style, And so I think that would help them a lot if they would just take an opportunity to say, there may be another way. Not just the way I handle it, but there may be another way.
You know what the other one is? And I just brought it up. It's avoiding. You're avoiding the avoider.
That's right. That's it. That's right. Avoiding.
So it's competing, collaborating, compromising, right? And avoiding and accommodating. Because I remember that because I'm accommodating. That's what it is. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, which I love.
It's avoiding. That's the one we were forgetting.
What's funny is today, when I realized it, and you keep mentioning like you being extremely uncooperative and assertive is the competing level, right? That's what I was doing with the student. I started competing. And well, because I would say I responded to him in a competitive way because he started competing with me. And then I was like, wait a minute. So, I mean, when you realize
that's the moment, Peter. Yeah, that's the moment. Alli, that's what they need. They need to be able to take that moment. But if they don't know that the 5 styles exist, and they don't, you know, like my husband used to say to me all the time, he would say something to me and I'd say, so I think you mean this. And he'd say, please don't active listen me today. Just don't active listen me today. I just don't feel like it. Okay. But the point of it is that when you use that skill that you've learned, it does help to change the dynamic. And so when I would do that, I would say to him, well, I think this is what I hear. Is this what you meant? You know, in so many words, when I would say that, he would have an opportunity, you know, to rethink how he phrased it or what he said and say it in a way that maybe I wasn't clear on it. It's not that you don't have an ability to convey the information. Maybe at this particular point, I don't have the ability to understand, you know, and so maybe it does need to be said in a different way for me or for that other student or for that other person. And I think that the young man who, which is interesting, I wasn't calling him a young man. I was saying she, because he had a scarf on and his nails were really long and pointed, right? I thought it was a girl. And so on Tuesday, I thought that it was a girl. I don't want to say it, but the person was a girl. And then on Thursday, somebody said, that's a boy. And I said, oh, conflict, right?
Yeah, right.
And I looked at him and I said, I'm really sorry. And he just smiled. And I think what he got from that was I wasn't judging. When I apologized, I think he got, I wasn't judging. I couldn't tell, right? And so I think that we need to be humble enough to say, you know what, I'm sorry. You know, and in so many words, how can we make this better? How can we change this? And that's what you did, Peter. That's what you did, you know?
Something very humbling, apologizing in front of an entire class, which I did.
Yes.
And it was, you know, the old me, and I'm saying old me like 20 years ago, would have never done that because Alli, right? They didn't teach us that in teacher school. It was like, yo, you're the teacher.
You're in control.
You got to control that class. Student behavior is a certain way and blah, 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 you know, so with that being said, you know, how do you see conflict, you know, coming into an organization? There's so many different levels it can come into, but you know, how can it, you know, and what are maybe some of the top 2, 3, 4 ways that you would see it, you know, coming in and helping educators, students, learners reaching, you know, their goals and their, you know, of teaching and learning? I
think that the very first thing that we have to do is we have to step outside of ourselves and see people as people, not that I'm the principal, I'm this, I'm that, you know, see people as people first and try to meet them at the people level. And then you use that authority when you need to. But I know that as an, you know, an educator, you have to establish a line of authority. I know you do. I'm not saying that you don't, but sometimes you can relax that once you have established it and the students see it. You can relax that and trust them as individuals, you know, to, you know, I was just reading an article about compliance, and they were talking about creating a team around compliance. It's like compliance, you know, are we going to be the Stepford Wives? What are you talking about? And I think that what they're talking about is here are the rules. And because we took this position, because we came to this school, because we, you know, came to this organization, we are going to be compliant in how we deal with those. But how do we make sure that we're compliant and we're still people? How do we make, you know, make that mesh? And I think that I'm going to actually take that course because I thought that was really interesting. And so in so many words, what they were saying is, you know, yeah, establish the ground rules, establish, you know, the benchmarks and all of those things, but recognize that you're dealing with people and things aren't just black and white. And we just can't deal with it as black and white. We just can't. So, you know, meeting and one of the young guys, when we finished with the yarn, it was all over the floor, right? And they had introduced themselves. It was all over the floor. And I said, so tell me, what is that? And somebody said, it's a mess. It's really a mess. And I said, life is a mess. And somebody said, you know what? It really is. And this guy said, he's like maybe 13. He said, it really is. Can I have that string? I just want all of it. I just want to take the whole ball. I'm like, sure, right? And somebody said, why did you let him have that string? Why not? Do you think I'm going to take it all apart and use it in the next class? No. I mean, who's going to do that? There are 15 kids, right? Was it 15? No, it was 23 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So am I going to do that? No. But the point of it is to just be a little relaxed and a little open and stop being so fearful. Because we're all walking around afraid. We're afraid of so many things, especially like what's happening in the school systems as far as, the books that are being taken out of school, the things that are you're no longer able to teach, the places you're no longer able to go, the decrease in the school scores because of what happened with COVID, where the students are, and the mental and physical and emotional fatigue that everybody is still experiencing. And COVID has been over a year?
Mm-hmm.
We've been out of it like a year. We're still dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
People are still hurting from it, And so I think if we just start out, Alli, by giving people a little grace instead of assuming you are bad, you are this, you are stupid, you're whatever, and not taking our stuff out on them. I think that's the place to start.
I really see this type of work lending itself well in lots of places in the educational system. But in particular, as you're talking, I'm thinking, my first year teaching, I was much more reactive than proactive, and it is separating out, yourself as a teacher versus as a person versus, the situation. You're just learning all about people.
That's true. That's so true.
First couple of years. And
you're a baby adult, right? You're a baby adult. You're, as my kids say, you're adulting. You're like trying to get through that adulting thing, right?
That's right. That's right. And I don't know that I had the language at that point to kind of identify and be aware of just this idea of conflict and the different types and styles that I could apply in those situations, not just in teaching, but in my life. I know that over time, I have kind of gotten my own lingo for it, or just identifying where someone's at, and it's really not about me and all those things. So I'm thinking that, schools and school districts investing in this type of training for first year teachers, or really as if someone's entering into a new position, whether that is a coordinator role or an admin role or anything, that level of awareness and the new problems or conflicts that you're going to encounter, it would really benefit in those areas. So in all the work that you do, in inside and outside of educational systems with conflict, and kind of bringing this to kind of a big vision piece here. How, besides what I just mentioned, how do you envision an educational system embracing the work that you do with conflict to, kind of dream up, an organization, an educational system that's really using the work that you're doing to move forward? What would come to mind if you could dream that up? And what would a top tier school district be doing with the work that you do?
I think that's a fantastic question. And I think a part of what it is that we have to give up on this expectation that people come with certain things. I know that, when you reach 8th grade, that there are certain things you should know, and, educationally, but we don't know what's happening at home. We don't know what's happening in their walk of life. And so we need to be open to teaching certain things like conflict resolution. I have a person that no longer does my nails, but I was going to her nail shop, and I stopped going because the customer service got to be so bad. And she was like, well, I can't teach these people customer service. I don't have time. I said, sweetie, this is your business. And if you're not willing, she said, well, nobody had to teach me that. My parents, they don't have your parents, So if you're not willing to teach what you need to model and teach what you want to come forward in your business, you're going to be out of business. And that's the same thing with the educational system and any other system. If you're not willing to teach and model those things, then how is anything going to ever get better? So I think they should teach conflict resolution. They should teach people to, I remember when I learned active listening, it was like, wow, right? And it helped so much in my marriage. It helped me with my kids. It helped me to just hold my tongue with my siblings, because we scream and yell at each other all the time, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just screaming and yelling. We're sisters and brothers, right? But if we would teach those things, that we have this expectation of people already knowing, instead of allowing them to struggle through it, just give them the ammunition. Think about these 8th graders. I thought about it when I was driving home as I was totally exhausted and wanted several drinks. I thought, you're laughing, I'm serious, because they wore me out, but they were so much fun.
I know you are.
I said, wow. Tuesday I left saying, did they get anything? Did they understand anything I said? Thursday I left with saying, they got more than I thought they were going to get. And it was because I didn't come in as the authority. I didn't come in as the person that was going to teach them something. I came in as the person that wanted to meet them and to share an experience with them. And so I think that what needs to happen in the educational system, in the law firms, all of these places, is they need to recognize that people just don't come with the kind of skills anymore. And honestly, let's be real. We didn't come with it before. We just didn't know, right? We just didn't know. But now we know that we've got these tools that we can use. Why not share them? I find myself using these things with my friends, like so-and-so, you're the one that was the principal. I'd say, were you always really tough with your kids? She said, I'd start off the first month really tough. And as I got to know them, I started dealing with them as them, that person. She said, because I had to set set the bar, so to speak. And that's wonderful. And my youngest sister, oh my goodness, she died, she heard that. My youngest daughter is a substitute teacher. And she says she can't understand these kids now. You can't take their phones. So they can be on their phones all day in the Chicago public school system. You guys experience that too?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me. And I said, well, Joy, how do you get their attention? She says, Mom, I have to find ways to engage them. Like, what are you looking at now? How does that relate to what we're talking about in this class? You do that, Peter?
Absolutely, because it's business,
yeah.
right? They're looking at businesses, really. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. So I think that we need to teach the things that we want them to have, not just here's the educational structure and you need to know your ABCs and you need to know how to, what is the square root of so-and-so, you need to know that, or you need to know how to speak this language. No, teach people how to be people. And they need to understand about conflict. It doesn't happen at home all the time anymore. It just doesn't happen. And we can't fault the parents or anything like that. What we have in front of us is what we have to deal with. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with what you have in front of you? And so with those new teachers that are coming in that first year, if they say, okay, so discipline isn't your problem, but it's your problem. So what are we going to do to help you with discipline? How about if you understand that conflict is an opportunity? Mm-hmm. How about if you understand that you can take that situation that can go south really quickly and turn it into something positive, like somebody who refuses to be on the team that they were already picked to be on. What did I do? I turned it around. Now, would I always allow that to happen? No. There would be times based on the situation, I'd say, I'm going to need you to step up. I'm going to need you to be a part of that team. But in that situation, I knew it was going to work because of how everybody's eyes were on me. What is she going to do? Right? What is she going to do? I was like, this is what we're going to do. Really? That's great. Yes, let's do that. And the scene was like, one of them was, you're having a dispute with your father and he's telling you to do something and you don't want to do it. So you want to come back to your father and relate to your father as a competing person or a collaborator or avoiding or whatever. And so that's how they did it. And they had to play out the scene themselves. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. Believe me. to watch them, how creative they were, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think that part of it is that we have to embrace that energy and embrace that creativity, but at the same time, try to create that balance in that classroom, Alli, that you're talking about, to make sure that you can, at the end of the day, you've got, you know, marching orders to have these kids at a certain point at a certain time
Mhm.
to help them to help you to get there.
Yeah.
So I think they need to embrace it. They need to teach conflict resolution in classrooms. Kids need to understand it. If these 8th graders could walk away with that, to be able to come back in 2 days and give me that stuff without having anything in front of them was amazing to me.
Mhm.
That said, they were really listening. And I left Tuesday a little dejected, thinking, what am I doing? They are not paying any attention to me. They're just waiting for me to shut up so they can get the food, right? They can get to the food, right?
They're the greatest
You
poker
never know.
players in the world.
Oh,
Gwen.
gosh, yes,
Greatest
that's a good
poker
way to
players
say
in the
it.
world.
Oh, that's such a good way to say it. They really are. They truly are. It was fabulous.
Yes. I love all of this. So, you know, before we get to, you know, sharing the information of how people can connect with you, Alli, I got to ask you final thoughts. What are you thinking?
I am really inspired by this work that you're doing, Gwen, and just that conflict is truly an opportunity. And I think that mind shift is so powerful that more people need to hear about your work. And I think if people want to disrupt education and they want to make changes, they cannot avoid conflict. And so they can't. And you're going to experience it. You're going to experience more the more you push against the norm. And so, but it's okay. And I think that's a really powerful tool for people to have in their toolbox, and would welcome them to connect with you when they're trying to make significant changes and grow, because that's going to be an essential tool in their toolbox.
I agree.
100%.
And that's really what it's about, is creating that toolbox, like you said, for the new teachers, creating that toolbox. And one of the things that I talk about kind of as a closing piece of the classes is that we can talk about conflict all the time, you know, and we can come to a meeting of the minds. You know, we can say we collaborated and we came up with a way we're going to deal with this. But if it was a conflict, if we don't deal with the people in the conflict, then people leave angry. So, or they leave sad, or they feel dejected, or they feel, you know, not embraced, or whatever you want to call it. And so the next conflict that comes up, they bring that baggage to the next one too, because they never healed from this one. So there's a piece of every conflict that needs to be about restoring the person to whole, you know, restoring people so that they can close that door and move to the next place. We've got to restore them. We've got to allow them to heal. And that's why the people part is more important than the conflict itself. But at the same time, and then I'm done, you have to be safe too.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, you have to recognize that sometimes you've got to be competing and say, you know what, decision has to be made. This is not safe. And so you have to handle that portion of it as well.
This hits so many of those durable skills we talked about before, Alli. Like, these are lifelong skills that, you know, are amazing. So I was in conflict. What is it good for? Absolutely everything. I love that title. Gwen, how can people connect with you and learn more about this? I really do think, I actually know, being a participant as an educator, it will change some of the hardships that students, teachers, parents, administrators have in their system. But how can people connect with you and find out more?
Well, you know, you can always go to my website. It's gwenhill.com. And you can also give me a call or send me an email. And I prefer the email. And my email address is gwen@gwenhill.com. And, you know, let me know what you're interested in. Not so much a course, you know, because yes, I'm in business. I want you to come to my courses, but I'm also interested in what's happening to our planet. So if it's a 15-minute conversation, just to say, hey, here's a conflict I'm going through. Can we discuss it a little bit? Can you give me some tips? I'd be more than willing to do that, because I want people to see that it works so that they are interested in then, you know, in making the investment to attend a class. So feel free to reach out to me at gwen@gwenhill.com.
Absolutely. We'll share that out in the notes. Gwen, thank you so much for being here. You're a true
You're
disruptor
welcome.
of education. I love the lens. I love the opportunity that comes along with conflict and the mindset that you shared today. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, Alli. A pleasure to meet you. Thanks, Peter.
Yes.
Thanks,
Absolutely. And for Alli Privitt, I'm Peter Hostrawser. Thank you all for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrawser or Alli Privitt.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.